Generally speaking, sharing experiences makes everything better. Now, while some things are better shared alone, the horror genre is not one of them. There is nothing more thrilling than being scared out of your mind right next to your pal, so you can both bask in the horror together, and sometimes simply because something is too genuinely terrifying to watch alone. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 scary horror movies you can't watch alone part 2. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump in. Coming in at 5, Mandy. Mandy is a 2018 horror film directed by Panos Cosmatos and stars Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough. The film itself takes place in the Pacific Northwest in 1983, where outsiders Red Miller and Mandy Bloom lead a loving and peaceful existence. When their pine-scented haven is savagely destroyed by a cult though, led by sadistic Jeremiah Sand, Red is catapulted into a phantasmagoric journey filled with bloody vengeance and laced with deadly fire. Now, this relatively simply structured revenge flick quickly erupts into a fantastic spectacle of violence and drug-fueled emotion. According to Rotten Tomatoes, the film currently holds a 91%, with the general consensus being Mandy's gonzo violence is fueled by a gripping performance by Nicolas Cage and anchored with palpable emotion conveyed between his volcanic outbursts. Reviewing the film after its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival, Nick Allen of RogerEbert.com praised it, writing that for all of the endless feral performances that Cage has given in movies good, bad, and forgettable, Cosmatos' style-driven 80s-tastic passion for weird worlds and characters takes full advantage of Cage's greatness, and then some. Honestly, something that no one would have ever expected. A good Cage performance. We all remember the bees, right? Never forget the bees. Anyway, Mandy is honestly a movie that needs to be shown, specifically at Friday movie nights in October. It's a party movie, and one that will have you yelling at the screen along with a friend to enjoy the ride with. In at 4, The Collector. The Collector is a 2009 horror movie written by Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton, with it originally being shopped as a prequel to the Saw franchise, but the idea was quickly dismissed. The movie centers on a man desperate for money to pay off a debt, so he targets a wealthy family's home and plans to break in and steal a valuable gem. He soon learns though that he picked the wrong night to carry out his plans, because a masked madman has already gotten there first, imprisoned the family, and lined the mansion with deadly traps. I should preface this by saying this film truly messed with my head. I would go as far as to say it traumatized me for a long time, simply because I wasn't expecting the level of horror that it brought forth. It genuinely disturbed me and it paralyzed me with fear, but that could simply be because I watched it back to back with Session 9. That's my own fault. The film itself is yet another riff on the home invasion thriller, but it blurs the lines by coming in the form of a dueling felons topped with a host of creative death traps. Now, as much as it scared me, the movie was met with generally negative reviews from critics, with it receiving a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the general consensus reading, "Increasingly tedious displays of gore makes this torture porn home invasion horror more pragmatic than provocative." On November 30th, 2012, a sequel was also released named The Collection. It was a dud. Don't recommend. In at 3, Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo is a 2008 Australian psychological horror movie written and directed by Joel Anderson. The film employs a mockumentary format, using actors in place of interviewees to tell the story of a family trying to come to terms with the drowning death of their daughter and the potentially supernatural events they experience after her death. Few films have managed to convey the grieving process better than Lake Mungo, a film that somehow failed to even receive distribution in the United Kingdom. This movie is incredibly underrated and is a suspenseful slow burn from beginning to end. Tension builds swiftly throughout as things begin to go bump in the night for the family dealing with their grief. It is a movie that manages to spend almost the entirety of its runtime building the chills until the freaky climax scares the out of you, makes you wish you never watched it in the first place. It also manages to leave you with more questions than answers, making it the perfect movie to watch with a friend. In its limited release, Lake Mungo was met with critical acclaim, with it earning a 94% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Very early on, before the movie was officially released, Variety named it an ambitious, restrained, and well-mounted mockumentary. In at 2, Funny Games. In at 2, Funny Games US. Funny Games is a 2007 horror movie written and directed by Michael Haneke, and a remake of his own 1997 film of the same name. The film is a shot-for-shot remake of the 1997 film, albeit in English and set in the United States with different actors. The film centers on a couple whose idyllic lakeside vacation home becomes terrorized by Paul and Peter, a pair of deeply disturbed young men. When the fearful Anna is home alone, the two men drop by for a visit that quickly turns violent and terrifying. Husband George comes to her rescue, but Paul and Peter take the family hostage and subject them to nightmarish abuse and humiliation. From time to time, Paul even talks to the film's audience, making us complicit in the horror unfolding on screen. The film is utterly disturbing, yet director Haneke states that the entire film was not intended to be a horror movie. He says he wanted to make a message about violence in the media by making an incredibly violent yet pointless movie. Upon its release, the film received mixed reviews from critics, with the movie holding a 51% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The general consensus reads, "Though made with great skill, Funny Games is nevertheless a sadistic exercise in chastising the audience." However, others disagreed, with Todd Gilchrist calling the movie unrelenting and brilliant. Funny Games is a truly great film, an incisive artistic triumph that doubles as a remarkably thrilling and unique cinematic experience. And quite honestly, I couldn't agree more. And as previously mentioned, the horror doesn't lie in the grotesque nature of the movie, but it lies simply in ourselves and how we as an audience are made to feel complicit in the acts taking place on screen. We're all guilty. Finally, in at number 1, Antichrist. Antichrist is a 2009 English-language Danish experimental psychological horror film. That's a mouthful. Written and directed by Lars von Trier and starring Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg. The movie tells the story of a couple who, after the death of their child, retreat to a cabin in the woods where the man experiences strange visions and the woman manifests increasingly violent sexual behavior and sadomasochism. The film itself was written in 2006 while von Trier had been hospitalized due to a significant depressive episode, with the film largely being influenced by his own personal struggles with depression and anxiety. After he and she retreated to the cabin in the woods, things go from bad to worse for the couple, with the oppressive Dafoe becoming impotent and Gainsbourg going absolutely stir-crazy and hacking at her own genitals with a pair of scissors. It is perhaps one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen, and audience members felt the same way, with most yelling at the screen and covering their eyes during the mutilation scenes. Two versions of the film were available at the Cannes Film Festival, nicknamed the Catholic and Protestant versions, where the former had some of the most explicit scenes removed, while the latter was uncut. However, the critical response was split between Denmark and the United States. In Denmark, the film quickly became successful with both critics and audience members, with it being labelled a grotesque masterpiece and receiving a perfect score of 6 out of 6. However, the film polarized critical opinion in the United States, with it holding a 53% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars out of 4, stating, "Von Trier, who has always been a provocateur, is driven to confront and shake his audience more than any other serious filmmaker. He will do this with sex, pain, boredom, theology, and bizarre stylistic experiments." The movie went on to win the award for Best Cinematographer at the 2009 European Film Awards, which it shared with Slumdog Millionaire. Not too shabby. Well, there we have it. You guys agree with our list? Were there any horror movies that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 3. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 scary SCPs based on real things. Quadarius Owen said, "Lucy likes stars. I wonder what her zodiac sign is. My zodiac sign is Capricorn, the superior sign. Get with the times." Bitch said, "I love how straightforward she is. LMFAO. It's the only way I can be. Blunt. I can't lie. You see on my face." Scully Cat said, "Yes, the pom-pom is back, and oh Lucy, you were doing a great job too." Thank you. But we know the hat is the star of the show. I'll bring it back more often. Lauren Boulding said, "Queen Lucy's hat is back. Must know where that cursed item came from." It came from H&M, so maybe you can find it. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.